again, my friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay, and today we're going to talk about what books I DNF'd in 2023 and what were my worst books of the year in 2023. First, let's start off with my DNFs. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about synopses or any of that, but we will quickly run through the books that I chose to DNF this year and a little bit of why I chose to DNF it. The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. I have learned this year that YA fantasy just is not keeping me captured like it has in the past, and so that's one of the reasons why I quickly DNF'd this. It also had the insta-love trope, which I just can't get down with in any book, adult or young adult. Liar, Dreamer, Thief. I'm not sure the author of this one, but this was a debut novel, I think, that came out in January of this year, and I really think it has an audience. I thought it was more of a mystery thriller, and there is a mystery aspect to it, but it's also more of a literary fiction, which is not really my cup of tea or my genre, so I had these expectations, and they were not met going in. So I DNF'd. I don't know what percent I DNF'd at, but it kind of read at some parts like a fever dream. And we also had that unreliable narrator. The writing style just did not work for me. The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I was really looking forward to getting back into the Cruel Prince world. I enjoyed the Cruel Prince series, but I just couldn't get down with these new cast of characters. I couldn't find anybody to latch onto, to care about, so I ended up DNFing the story. Big Ship at the Edge of the Universe. This is probably one of my biggest disappointments of the year. I thought I would love this book. I wanted to get into more sci-fi this year. When I pulled it out of my jars, because I think that's where it came from, I was like, yes, I'm going to read this. This is the one that I'm going to read. And unfortunately, it did not end up working for me. I felt like it read YA, and I felt like also that I couldn't find a character to root for. I couldn't latch on to any characters, so therefore if I can't care about the characters, I don't care what happens to them. And so unfortunately, this did not work for me. City of Lies by Sam Hawke. This is another one that I thought I would knock it out of the park, but I think, again, part of what I have figured out that I don't like are stories that take place over a short period of time or in one specific area. I like to be broad because I feel like that it takes being broad to really have the characters grow. So that was my problem with this. I just had read a good portion of it and didn't care about the characters and just didn't care about anything that was happening in the story, unfortunately. One of Us is Lying by Kristen McManus. This is a very popular book. Again, it falls into that thing where I'm just not into YA books anymore. So when I started to read this book and there was a whole bunch of YA type drama, I just knew it wasn't for me and I went ahead and put it down. The Bright and Burning Sea by Chloe, I can't remember, I'll pop a picture up here, but I just think that I had read a little bit of this and I wasn't in the mindset to read it. I pulled it from my jars, so I tried to read it and I wasn't in the mindset to read it, and then I had read a good portion of it and just didn't feel connected to the character, so I just put it down and never picked it back up. The City We Became. This is an N.K. Jemisin book, and I've said before, I didn't get along with the 5th season. Everybody loved the 5th season. I thought it was just okay. And I knew that The City We Became was a very divisive book, but that premise sounded so promising. But overall, I just didn't feel like I connected with the writing style of that book, and who knows if I'm going to give N.K. Jemisin another shot or not. Unfortunately, also one of my biggest disappointments of the year is going to be The Blood Gift by Annie Davenport. I really loved The Blood Trials when it came out, so much so I brought a physical copy, and then I brought a physical copy of The Blood Gift because I was just sure that I was going to love it, and that was not the case. I read a good portion of it, and a good first portion of the book was about a relationship that I just didn't care about. Like, all, again, that they cared about was their relationship when the world was falling apart, and I just didn't connect with me. Okay, and then my biggest disappointment, the one that y'all are gonna be like, Shay, what? How in the world? I have heard nobody say anything negative about this book. Not a single person, and I DNF'd it. And I do have a vlog where I DNF'd it. The Will of the Many by James Islington. So everybody loved this book, and so I bought a physical copy, and I don't know what it was. I just didn't care. I didn't care about the characters, and I don't know why I didn't care. Like, everybody's like, oh, I'm eating it up like candy. I didn't care. And I've thought that this may have something to do with me reading a lot of the book on audio, and maybe the audiobook just didn't click with me. So I I think this year I may go back and retry this book. So this may be a soft DNF, this may be a hard DNF, I don't know, but I did DNF The Will of the Many, and I feel like I read a good portion of the book. Okay, now we're going to get into the worst books of the year, the ones that I finished and really just did not like. These are in no particular order, starting with Guilty Pleasures, which is by Laurel K. Hamilton, which is the Anita Blake #1. I've read it before. I've read this before, and I really loved it back when I read it, but here I go, I picked it up again, and I thought, I don't know what I was smoking when I liked it before. I was a different person, a different reader, but none of this clicked with me, and none of this worked with me, and I am so happy for the people that it does work for, but it wasn't me. One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really kind of hated this book. I liked it when it was beginning, when it was starting, and then I actively despised it because I don't want to give spoilers in this video, but if you've read the book, you know you know. If you know, you know, okay? I am not down for cheating. I'm not down for what went down in this book. End of story. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I really didn't like this book. I vlogged this book as well. I had high hopes going into it. I heard such great things, but I felt like it just harmed parts of communities that I felt didn't need to be harmed. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And plus, I really just didn't care about any of the characters or the story of the plot that was going on. The Wicker King by Kay Ancrum. Everybody loves this book. Again, this falls into the fact that I don't like YA. Maybe Cemetery Boys also falls into the fact that I'm just not a YA fan anymore. But that's basically what has happened. With The Wicker King, I just felt like the mental health representation was not super great. It may have been captivating, but I don't think it was wonderful. I also just didn't care about these characters, and so that's why it drug it down for me. The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich, everybody's like #1 favorite of the year. When the year it came out, I love it, I love it. I hated this book actively, and I think that this book could work for people that aren't sci-fi fantasy readers, that aren't, for literary fiction readers, I think that this would work great for. Not sci-fi fantasy readers, because there were plot holes, there was world building issues, and it took a more literary fiction turn, but still, if you're gonna have this whole big plot about these strings and you know, it dictating your lifespan, there's a lot that you should have delved into that was not delved into, and so there was plot holes galore, and people just didn't care, and I'm like, what do you mean? So it just was unrealistic, and so it's one of my worst of the year. The Daughters of Izdihar by, I can't remember who this is by, I'll pop a picture of it. I read it, it's one of the first books I read in the year. I just could care less. I thought the pacing was terrible. I thought that it was very on the nose, like it was supposed to be a very feminist book, but all it did was like drive home the feminism, but didn't have the plot to back up that feminism, and so I couldn't with that book. So unfortunately, it's on the worst of the year. And of course, The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Chu. I am so happy for the people that love this book, but it didn't work for me. I was bored out of my mind, and to be quite honest, I cannot believe that I finished this book. I should have DNF'd it, but I pushed through, which is why it's on my worst books of the year. I just didn't find a plot to grip me. There was none to be found. I understand that, great, there's some characters going on. Maybe I cared about one character in particular, but the rest I could have cared less about, and so I won't be continuing on with that series, of course. That's gonna be it. That's gonna be all of my DNFs and my worst books of the year. What are your worst books of the year? What books have you DNF'd? Have you loved any of the books I've talked about? Have you hated them? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.